Two adolescent children are having a sleepover. It is late and the parents have long been asleep, but these two, as many kids do, stayed up very late chatting with each other. Hours passed before they even realized what time it was. The digital clock shone 3:11 in big red numbers. One lets out a yawn. The other turns over, looks coldly at the first and says, "Have you ever heard the tale of Bloody Mary?" A chill runs down both of their spine. Nervously, the first kid says no, their voice wavering. The other tells the first how they had overheard a few kids at school talking about it. Even though it makes them uncomfortable, curiosity gets the best of them, and they ask to hear more. In whisper tones, the two exchange shudders. Minutes that feel like hours creep by, and at the end, the two can't decide whether it's the silence or the curiosity that is killing them more. If only they knew. After a short back and forth, the two decided they would be brave and test the urban legend. What's the worst that could happen? The kids tiptoe down the hallway to the bathroom. They stop suddenly when they hear shuffling from the parents' bedroom. They hold their breath and listen, and exhale deeply when they hear the snoring continue. They were in the clear. The daring duo stood in the hallway, but both of them knew that backing out now would only prove that they were being a huge wimp. There was no going back. The storyteller brought a candle and some matches so they could see with the lights out. Nervous fingers fumble getting a match lit, and a labored breath blows it right back out. After managing to get the second one lit, the candle slowly comes to life. The storyteller closes the door, flicks off the light, and the two look at each other. Immediately, their imaginations run wild. Shadows dancing in the corners, leaving the two to question everything. "We have to say it together," the storyteller mutters quietly. The other simply shakes their head. The two take a deep breath and begin to chant together. "Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary." Into the mirror in unison. The first few times were soft, but they grew confident until they were almost smiling about it as if it were a joke. They looked at each other, then back at the mirror to say Mary one final time, and that's when it happened. The candle flickered out and the room was filled with a ghostly glow. She appeared behind them, screaming in 3 different voices, none of which were human. The storyteller watched in fear as the figure draped a claw across its comrade's face, and they fell to the ground. The blood-red eyes turned to them next and tightened their grip around their throat. The talons locked in as their screams came out a garbled mess. They fought back to be freed from this unholy grip. After what felt like an eternity, right when they were about to give up, the lights flicked back on, and as quickly as the sadistic specter appeared, it was then gone again. The storyteller's vision grew blurry as they looked from their own marks around their neck to the scars on their friend's face. They now looked like it was burned where the wild witch had touched them. They leaned against the wall, slowly slumping into a pile, and then they lost consciousness, wondering if any of it was real. The tale of Bloody Mary is one of the most widely known urban legends. The terrifying image of a young mangled woman arises immediately, alongside the popular alcoholic beverage. Combining the two images induces even further fear. Initially, the ritual was intended to have a much different effect. The method was for a young woman to walk backwards up a flight of stairs carrying a candle and a hand mirror. As they did this, they would sometimes catch glimpses of their future husbands in the mirror, a ghostly face of futures to come. Sometimes they would see the Grim Reaper, indicating that they would die before they were married. And sometimes they would trip and fall down the stairs, and their injuries would lead them to a possible husband. Granted, they married one of the doctors, or if the icy hand of death itself would take her. Because walking backwards upstairs, in the dark, while actively focusing behind you and not on your feet, you will likely end up in one of those two places. Prophecy fulfilled either way, I guess. The modern ritual is a little more grotesque. Bloody Mary allegedly appears to those who summon her, using cataptromancy, or the act of using a mirror to perform supernatural feats. This is usually accomplished by repeatedly chanting her name into a mirror. Sometimes people pick a spooky number, like 13. After the satisfying number had been achieved, the invokers will be met by the ghost of a young woman covered in blood. Probably one of the hundreds that died from head trauma falling down the stairs in the dark. Some say she is friendly, while others report all manners of things, from screaming, drinking your blood, scratching your eyes out, to stealing your soul. That's right. Bloody Mary is a ginger confirmed. There's also a story that tells of a haggard old crone that lived at the edge of town. She had taken to residing in the woods and cultivating herbal remedies. She sold her herbal remedies to the townsfolk, so of course she was a witch. Everyone kept their distance from her for fear that she would cast spells upon them or their beloved cows. Strangely, children started disappearing from the town. Panicked, their parents were unable to find them and began raising questions. Grief-stricken, they would search for days, all coming back empty-handed. A few of the more brave citizens even tried to go to the witch's house, hoping that they would have any sort of answer. Whenever they did, the woman living out there, coincidentally named Mary, would deny any knowledge of the matter. Although the townsfolk reported that each time they went out looking for their children and ran into her, she looked mysteriously younger. Eventually, the town miller's daughter rose in the middle of the night and began walking unconsciously out of their house. The wife was unable to sleep due to a reported toothache, so she was awake when she saw her daughter come stumbling out into the room like a zombie, shuffling right past her and out the door. The wife tried in vain to wake her up, becoming hysterical with her failure. As she made a huge scene, people around in the town began to wake up and notice what was going on. The villagers joined together in mob-like fashion and paraded directly over to Mary's house, the direction the miller's daughter had last been seen going. They found Mary being weird in the yard with a magic stick, a strange light glowing around her. She tried to flee the scene, but one of the villagers had brought his rifle, which he had loaded with silver bullets, and shot her in the hip with it. They leapt upon her, pummeled her into a bloody pulp, drug her crippled mass back to town, stuck her on their favorite witch-burning pike, and the rest is history. As most angry witches do, she cursed them, and their children, and their children's children. Moral of the story? Probably a couple. Probably shouldn't take out the anger and shame of being a negligent parent upon old forest hags. Maybe lock your doors if your kids sleepwalk? Oh, and don't walk in the dark backwards upstairs if you want to live long enough to get married. Probably counterproductive to wake up dead at the bottom of your stairs. There are many tales out there like this that we are going to explore together to help us better understand the psychology of ourselves and our ancestors. Join me in the future as we take similar journeys. And if you listen real closely...